Hi, this is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own homemade tomato sauce. Now today's recipe is going to be a basic marinara sauce without the meat, but you can easily add meat to it. All you need to do is start with roughly a pound of ground beef or ground sausage and brown it first in the pan you're going to make the sauce in, and then drain off the excess fat. If you want to use meatballs, you can prepare the meatballs any way you like. You can throw them in the sauce raw as long as you allow it to cook long enough for those meatballs to really cook through. But you will wind up with a big layer of fat on the top that you're going to need to skim off. To avoid that, you could prepare your meatballs and then bake them in the oven, broil them, or pan saute them until they are cooked or almost cooked, because your spaghetti sauce is going to cook for quite a while and they can finish cooking in there. But if you pre-cook them, you'll avoid having all that excess fat in your sauce. Alright, we're starting with a medium to large Dutch oven, and I'm only using a big pot like this for now with this recipe so that there's plenty of room to stir it around without making a huge mess. I have made a huge amount at one time. Not a problem. You can do this. This recipe is very flexible. And freeze the extra. That's what I would always do, is freeze it in containers that are small enough for about 1 meal's worth at a time. Alright, my pan is warmed up, and I'm going to put roughly a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil in there. And I just want to kind of spread that around. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. Now I have about a half of an onion, a medium-sized onion just chopped up, 3 cloves of garlic, and one word here, this recipe again is very, very forgiving and very flexible, so that if you don't want to take the time to cut up onion and garlic, that's fine. Use garlic powder, dried minced onions, something like that. The recipe works fine. I've got about 1 stalk of celery there that looks like kind of odd. It's celery that was frozen. And I have about a half a cup of chopped bell pepper. If you don't have bell pepper, you can leave it out. Again, this is to taste, and it's very, very forgiving, very flexible recipe. Now I have an unusual ingredient. This is 1 carrot that has been finely grated in a food processor. This is an optional ingredient. I like to add it because carrot adds a little bit of sweetness to it and a little depth of flavor, and it also helps to get a little more garden variety vegetable into your sauce. My mother, who was a first generation American, both of her parents were from Italy. She taught me how to make this sauce when I was in elementary school, so I've been making it for a lot of years, and I usually don't even measure. I just throw stuff together and it seems to work very well. She would throw a whole carrot in there and then just pick it out and eat the carrot herself. You can make it without the carrot. I just like to add it in there because it does add for some more depth. I've turned the heat back up a little bit because the temperature cooled way down. So I'm going to check back with you as soon as these vegetables are just tender. You can see that the onions are starting to get translucent, so we're going to proceed onward. If you were using ground sausage or ground beef in this, that would be in this mixture. You would have browned it in this pan, drained off the excess fat, added a little bit of oil if needed, and then proceeded on with browning or not browning, but just cooking your vegetables a little bit. Okay, now we're going to add 2 28-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes. You could also use diced tomatoes. Whatever is perfectly fine. Either way works. So 2 28-ounce cans. By adding the crushed tomatoes, you're going to get a little smoother sauce, especially if you don't add the carrot in there. Made a mess. And now you want to add one 12-ounce can of tomato paste. The tomato paste is really important. You don't want to omit that. Otherwise, your sauce may be a little bit on the watery side, thin side, and this also adds a flavor dimension that you really need in there. So we're going to add this whole 12-ounce can, and then I'm going to fill the can up with water, stir it around to get any last little bit of tomato paste out of the can, and add that. Starting to bubble, so I'm going to turn my sauce back down, because one of the things you want to do with this is make sure you cook it on a slower temperature. And the beauty of this is you can also put all of this in the crock pot in the morning before you go to work, turn it on low, and you'll have some wonderful spaghetti sauce when you come home. If you don't want to bother with sauteing vegetables, don't have time for it, and you're going to use a crock pot, just put some dried minced onion in there, maybe some dried garlic powder, celery flakes, not garlic salt, for sure, not garlic salt, celery salt, no, just the dried garlic, the dried celery itself. Now you see, once we stir this tomato paste in there, it's already kind of a thick sauce. And we're not finished yet. Now we're going to add some flavoring to it. And the flavoring is the kind of thing, very, very flexible, and you can tailor it to your liking. Usually I don't measure. This time I'm going to attempt to measure, and we may adjust it as we go. I say attempt to measure because I don't usually do that, but for the sake of a recipe we need to. Okay, for this amount we're going to add 1 bay leaf, 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar. That's kind of an important thing because the tomato is rather acidic, and the sugar helps to dampen that acidity a little bit. If you leave it out, it's going to be rather sharp, or could be sharp. Okay, now I have some dried oregano. I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. Probably enough of that. Now I have some dried parsley flakes. We're going to go with 2 teaspoons of that. And I have some dried basil. We're going to go with 1 teaspoon of that. I'm going to throw just a little salt in here. That again is to your taste. And a little bit of black pepper. This might be equivalent to about 1/4 of a teaspoon. And now we're going to stir this up. If it looks a little bit thick, you can add just a little bit more water to it, because you're going to allow this to cook low and slow and long. Preferably 2 hours or more. And I know you're thinking, oh, I don't have that kind of time. Well, this is where if you put it in the crock pot on your way to work before you head out, you'll have some wonderful sauce when you get home. Or you can start it on a Saturday if you're home and doing some chores. You start it first thing in the morning and allow it to cook slowly. Stir it every now and then. You don't want it to burn on the bottom if you can help it. And just allow it to cook on a medium-low heat for a couple hours. After a little while, taste it and adjust the flavorings if you need to. And that's what I'm going to do, and I'll get back with you when that time comes. I want you to know that I added about another 1/2 cup of water to this, and after a half hour I tasted it, and I added about another teaspoon of parsley and 1/2 teaspoon up to a teaspoon of basil. No more oregano is needed. And it's cooked now for about 40 minutes. I'm going to allow it to cook for another hour just so those flavors can blend, but you can see it's good and thick. And if you had meatballs in there, you could add them just right away when as soon as you're adding the tomatoes, and after you've stirred in the herbs and so forth, and then throw your meatballs in there, and that way they'll allow to cook while the sauce is cooking. And this sauce is fabulous. You can use it not only for spaghetti sauce and lasagna, but in a Swiss steak, a chicken cacciatore, stuffed cabbage, stuffed peppers. Anywhere you would use a really nice tomato sauce. And again, I would freeze it in small containers. Freezes really, really well. And just freeze it in small containers about 1 meal's worth at a time. And you won't regret having this on hand. If you want to download a copy of this recipe, I have a link on the screen now where you can get a PDF version. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. I sure encourage you to try this recipe when you can. It's better than anything you can buy out of a can or a jar. This is Judy at Judy in the Kitchen. Have a great day.